Hello everybody, hello UK. I'm gonna talk this way because people are sitting right there. Okay, that's gonna be quick. It's a little checklist for modeling, for approvals, and for work in progress. So if you wanna send me stuff, no problem if you have questions, but there's a certain way of doing it, so I won't lose too much time of looking at through your stuff. First, if you send me, I won't go by number right now. I'm gonna just go right away by saying, if you send me something, tell me why you're sending me your stuff. Is it a work in progress? You have a question on something, or it's a final, you want an approval on it. I'm gonna look at different ways of, you know, if it's just a work in progress, I won't look at the naming or anything like this. I know there's some parts that I won't look too much. If it's an approval, I'm gonna pinpoint every little detail, so it's very important that you do that. So let's talk about number one. When you have a mesh, sometimes I'm getting OBJ, and that's a different case, but if the OBJ comes in, it's mainly combined, all the meshes are combined together, and I do a separate to see better the things. It should never be saved as like that, the combined meshes. If two meshes are not welded together by vertices, they should be separate. And each of them should have a separate name. That's number one. Number two. Okay, yeah, that's why I just said all the objects should be named correctly by the naming convention that Philippe was going to talk about later. So your Maya file, you have your naming convention. You know how to follow it. We're going to talk about it a little later. But you have your Maya file naming convention, and inside that scene, every little meshes has to be named correctly also. So if it's a character, Sammy's going to talk about it a little more. It has to be left and right also. If it's a prop, and inside your prop there's a part that's going to be turned into sub-D, that's going to be added also in the naming convention. We're going to have a triple S put in to say that it's a sub-D. So at the render, everything is going to be rendered as poly, except for that one going to be turned into the sub-D mode. That we forgot to put in the naming convention, but we'll add it later. So number 4 is using Maya 2010. Straightforward. So no OBJs anymore. Trying to send a BX if you don't have Maya, and Maya ASCII is very important for me. I cannot open Bs sometimes. I don't have the license. Whatever I'm at, it's easier for me to just edit the text file. Okay, so when you think you're done, first thing you do, you take your mesh and you delete the history on it, because there is full of crap of stuff happening, and you freeze your transform.
You select everything and do delete by type history, like, or delete on all the pieces, or?
Yeah, delete all by type.
And
should delete everything.
You select like everything at the same time?
The freeze, yes, it does that too.
Meaning you don't have to do the one little mesh, separate mesh at a time.
Just drag select everything, delete all by type history, deletes everything. Same thing for freezing, same thing for reset, right? So it's kind of easy, there's no excuse not to do it. So the pivot is going to be reset by the reset, and it's going to go back to 0. So if you place your object far away from 0, the pivot's going to go back to 0, but not the object. So place, the thing you can do is in a group of that object, you take the first group, you center pivot on it, you snap that object to 0, and then you, if it's a car, for example, you translate up the tires to 0 on the side view, and then you reset. So the pivot's going to go back to 0, and your car is on surface, right? So that's the way to do that. So number 8, run the cleanup tool, please. That's mainly every time I'm sending, you guys sending meshes, and you guys too. It's full of non-manifold geometry or full of non-quads. So the cleanup tool is really easy to use. You go to mesh and you go to cleanup, and don't have it to actually fix the problem for you. Just add the option of selection the polygon that are not correct, because sometimes it doesn't do the right thing. So you just want to know what's happening with your mesh and where it's happening in, so you can go back and fix it, right? So so just follow this, and it's going to be way easier for me. So you have all the options written down that you can follow. So select everything else that's not your model, like lights, projection, image plane, and stuff like that. Just delete that. You can 10 all transform should be frozen and reset. We talked about that. So after all of that, you should have a pretty much a clean scene, but it's never really clean. There's always little things happening underneath the hood. So best thing is select everything again, export it out, and re-import it in the new scene. So it's going to clean up a bunch of things that sometimes just bugs along the way. So that's pretty much it. It should, the light linker, that's the main thing it gets rid of, and that's a main concern down the road. It gets really heavy, and that's kind of a bug that the light link will stay there. So, all right.
What's a light link?
The light linking is kind of a weird thing. When you create lights and you use lights in your scene, even if you delete it, there's a node that stay there, and you rebring your lights, and it creates more nodes. And at one point, it takes so much time to save or to load up, and you have nothing in your scene. That's light linking stuff. So there's a script to get rid of it, but you can get rid of it by exporting. So if we find out that exporting doesn't fix the thing, I can find a script for it. Okay. Just let me know. So the second page is actually the not mistake, but things that happen when I open, like very common when I open the files that I'm receiving. So most of them don't have any shaders. If you send me an OBJ that you shouldn't do anymore, it's, I understand it's one shader, but things are way easier for me to see things that are superimposed if they have different shaders, like this, for example. We don't see much here, the first one, and with shader is we see there's a framing and there's another mesh inside. The second part is sometimes from certain angles it looks great. The model is like, yeah, that's a leg and a table, but if you just turn it a little, it doesn't touch, or it goes through. So most of the time it doesn't touch enough. And even if we think that's going to be far, we never know. Maybe we're going to change our mind and go a close-up on it. So just make sure that things that should touch don't just touch, but goes through it a little, right? And like for this example, the leg of the table that goes in, just please delete the faces inside. We don't need it, and it's just going to add more geometry. The third example is kind of the same thing. It shows there's a gap in between those two meshes that there is no reason for it. Just push it through, and it would be way better. the fourth one is happening a lot with gaming people. They create a mesh, and I don't know how they do their process, but it creates like kind of a pinch to one point, and it creates that kind of weird mesh. This is not really acceptable. You know, it's going to be shading really bizarre when we're going to render this. So try to get the grid through your stuff, even if it's around, you know, the end of a cylinder. You know, sometimes people just pinch the geometry. It's not too bad, but it's way better if you can do like a kind of a grid-like, because when you're gonna apply texture there, it's gonna be way easier. And the last one is kind of the same thing. It's geometry where I don't know what happened, but this is not really gonna shade correctly. If you do a blend on this, like a really nice shiny shader, that's gonna show. And maybe for gaming it's easier, or it's okay because it's it's not. Well, all right, there's no reason for it then. I was trying to be polite, but no, it happens. It happens a lot. I'm getting a lot of models like this, so it's common. So just trying to keep in mind grid-like meshes are way better for texturing. And that's that. So the naming convention.
I'm Belarde. I'm the guy you talk to when you need something wonkified. So, I don't know what else you need. Okay. The gist of it is, the biggest problem New York was having is when you import an OBJ, for some reason you get like several different names. So, say, I don't know. So this is what you originally named, like your object. When you import it into another file, Maya will give it another name of the original name, and then it'll give it whatever you're calling that scene, you know, and it'll do this. So some of the models had like several names in just one object, and it just looked something like that. And it was just several objects with like several different names going across, and it was just Maya didn't like that. So here's your object you're gonna export. So you go to File, Export Selection, Options. You want to check keep only a reference, and then uncheck Use namespaces, and export your object. Just name it whatever you're going to name it. Export it as a .ma file.
Normals are really important to check, and how to check it is if you look at this here, it's beautiful, but there is one object that has the normal reversed, and if you go to lighting and unclick the two-sided lighting, you see right away what is black is actually reversed. So really easy to fix that. You go to normal, well, you select first the object, you go to normal, and you go reverse. It goes back to the real normal. So, or there's another way, you go to display polygon and face normals, but that's not as fun because I'm going to show you. It creates all those little spikes, and it's more difficult if you want to look to see. Sometimes it's really dense, so I recommend a two-sided lighting to be off.
Alright, so I'm gonna just show you guys some stuff about grouping. Just in general, when you work on stuff, even if it's not, this helps a lot with rigging, but even if you don't rig, like it's not an object that's gonna be rigged, it's just good practice to group your stuff in a way that makes sense. So, like, just think of it logically, like, In this case, we have the wheels. It makes sense to have the wheels as part of one group because they're an object unto themselves. We probably wouldn't need the spokes to be like a separate group from the rest of the wheel, but in this case, it's good to have the wheels one group, which is going to be driven by a controller in this case. Have the other wheel as part of a different group. Anything that makes sense to put together, and then everything at the end should be grouped to one parent. The parent can be either an empty, like what do they call it, a locator, or you can just parent it to one of the other objects. Like in this case, like it can be parented to the base. So just make sure everything is in a logical grouping. If you do make groups and break groups later on too, remember to delete your groups. So like you'll notice you end up with empty groups. They don't have anything in them and they're just to transform. So if you're not using the group, just go ahead and delete it, and that'll keep your scene a lot cleaner and easier to actually find stuff in there. That's it.
Reiterate about the stool, like 5 stools in one group, and then you duplicate that whole group, and then you've got the same numbering, and then...
So, also, if you have several objects, it's like a hack, basically, to ungroup them, and then Maya will try to rename stuff. Basically, it doesn't want things with the same name, so it'll try to rename it. So if you have a stool, you have several stools, it'll assign numbers incrementally to them. So stool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So if you have stuff that's already grouped, just ungroup it by using the unparenting hotkey, which is Shift P.
Shift P.
Shift P, or yeah, I use Shift P. I can't remember where to find it. And because it'll move everything out of the group, it'll try to rename stuff accordingly, and then you can group it back together in a way that makes sense.
Did you get that? I'm Andrea. So one of the things to check too is, and again, a lot of people don't have Maya. Max is supposed to have a setting where when you send me the Max files, we should be able to read it when you send the FBX file, to where when we bring it into Maya ASCII, it should have all the internal naming set up anyway. Double check regardless. When you bring in a file, especially if it's an FBX or another Maya ASCII from somebody else, say you're fixing UVs or you're texturing, go back in and double check, because sometimes some could get messed up in the interim. And if that happens, then either send it back to the original modeler or let me know and we'll figure it out. And so that way, we don't want you spending like an hour or more on something. If it's something that can be changed and renamed real quick, great. But if it's going to be a very long process, then we need to send it back to the modeler to fix themselves.
And for the Max people?
For the Max, yeah.
So if we send you something in FBX,
yeah,
you should save it, reopen it to see if the naming is okay.
Yeah.
And we should be okay with the naming in Maya too.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
That's a good way of just checking.
Yeah, so what Philippe was just saying is that for all of you Max people, if you, when you save it to an FBX, close down Max, reopen it, bring in that FBX, and see if the internal naming has actually stuck to that FBX. If not, you might want to check your settings, because Autodesk should be able to read, you know, because it's the same company, should have that already worked out to where they talk to each other. Cool, so I guess we'll move on to the next section.